welcome to my study called Pardon My French. In this game we will analyze the original Monte-Carlo variation. Frank Marshall, had the white pieces. He played e4, e6, d4, d5, e takes d5. The exchange variation, which looks boring, but e takes d5, c4. This is the first game where the Monte-Carlo variation was seen in practice and widely known. However, it should be noted that this position can also be reached with d takes c4, bishop takes c4, and you have a queen's gambit accepted, and this was seen many times in the 19th century, and I'll be putting some games later on where we discuss those positions. Knight f6, knight c3, bishop b4, a3, bishop takes c3, b takes c3, castles. So now it looks like white's in some trouble because he's behind in development, but he does have space as compensation, an open b file, and a open b1 to h7 diagonal where he could place his queen and bishop as a menacing battery. Knight f3, rook e8, bishop e2. Knight e4, queen c2, d takes c4. So here Marshall played knight to e5 to put interference between the rook and the knight. In return, Swiderski played bishop f5. Now that looks dangerous again because the queen is about to be under a discovered attack once the knight moves away. But here Marshall played a good move, and there's some tactics. Can you find it? Marshall played bishop takes c4. Here's the idea. If the knight moves away, perhaps with knight to g3, then bishop takes f7, then you move the queen away, and then you take the rook. In other words, knight d6. Bishop takes f7. If knight takes f7, then queen takes f5. If king to h8, then queen to b3. And you're about to take on b7 as well, and you're also attacking the rook. But I would probably castle first with the dominant position. Knight takes f7, queen takes f5, queen to f6. And it looks like queen takes queen would be great, which would make black's pawn structure messy, but your knight will be pinned. So Marshall moves the queen back to d3, and then knight takes e5, d takes e5, queen takes e5, bishop to e3. It looks like white is about to castle. Knight c6, rook b1. There's really no imminent danger because after rook a d8, queen c4 is check. So king to h8 and then castle. So now white can continue playing the game. Knight to a5, queen to a4. Playing on the queen side, of course, because that's where his pieces are aiming at. And there is also not much danger at all on the king side. b6 in order to protect against rook b5. So now Marshall plays a strong positional move, bishop d4. And I believe that Marshall saw this move once the move king to h8 was played. So that's the reason why he castled besides taking the pawn. That time was important to him, and therefore we have arrived at the position. Queen to d6. So Marshall wants to keep improving the position of his bishop and therefore played f4. c5. Knight c6 is also an interesting consideration. After c5, bishop e5, queen d7. Marshall does not want to trade queens as he is in a better position here with the bishop in the open game, and the knight is not in play. If Marshall were to trade queens, then that would give the knight time to get back in the game. Queen c2. knight c4. And here, Marshall played rook b d1. So it looks like there is about to be a very bad fork on e3 by the knight, but Marshall had actually calculated this continuation from this position. Queen c6, rook takes d8, rook takes d8, rook d1, rook takes d1, queen takes d1, queen takes g2. And it looks like black just won a pawn, but he did not see one move further. King takes g2, knight to e3, king f3, knight takes d1, and finally c4, trapping the knight. The knight is dominated. So this is another one of the reasons why the French defense exchange Monte-Carlo variation is great for white, because you have to be great at tactics if you're the white player and if you're the black player. If you allow a close game, then he is able to positionally wrestle you more and more, and he will be also in more familiar positions, since that's the positions that he wants to play with e4, e6, d4, d5. He wants to stay in a closed game. That's the point of the French opening. But by getting an open position, you are letting the opponent know, hey, you're not going to get your close positions, so I hope you are good in the open game. So this is the original game. It's great to know, and I will be going into more detail on games that start with this move order, but also games that end up in the Queen's Gambit accepted positions, because they are very similar. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.